I'm back with another viral recipe rating episode. We're gonna be exploring 3-ingredient recipes. Many 3-ingredient recipes. Here's the thing about these 3-ingredient recipes. I feel like they've been viral for many years. And I get it, you know? It only requires 3 ingredients. They're usually pretty easy. They're very straightforward. But at the same time, there's so many of them. Which ones are actually good and worth doing? I want to make sure that you're making the best use of your time and your ingredients. So once again, I have curated a list of 8 viral 3-ingredient recipes that I think would be fun for us to do a little deep dive with. We have some fun ones with some high level of potential deliciousness, and on the other end, we also have some interesting takes. Before we get started though, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to our sponsor for today, Skims. I'm actually also wearing a piece from their Fits Everybody collection right now. So as some of you know, I film a lot by myself at home. I don't have a production crew or a kitchen assistant. Usually when I'm filming these types of videos, I'm standing here for 7 to 8 hours straight. And that can be extra brutal when you're wearing a bra that has underwires digging into your ribs the entire time. So actually starting last year, I switched to wearing bralettes because I still want support, but I also want something that I can breathe in, especially when I'm moving around the kitchen. This one I'm wearing right now is the triangle bralette from the Skims Fits Everybody collection, and I really just love how buttery, soft, and gentle it is on my skin. Like, it legitimately makes the entire filming process a lot more bearable because of how comfortable it is. So I'd highly recommend checking it out. You can use the link in the description box below to browse the Fits Everybody collection. They have sizes from XXS to 4X. And also, after you place your order, let them know I sent you over. You just have to pick YouTube in the survey that pops up and then select my channel in the drop-down menu that follows. Okay, without further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, I'm starting off strong with an Oreo recipe, which, following last time's crazy Oreo risotto situation, I was a little skeptical at first, but this time we're making cake. So I have much higher hopes. And the first step here really is to separate the cream, the filling, from the Oreo cookies. I actually went ahead and microwaved this a little bit just for it to have a little more of like a softer texture so it can kind of mix in with the milk better. I don't think that actually helped in the end, as you can see with all these clumps inside. You're going to find out that it actually doesn't matter though, so it's totally fine. On the other side, I have all these Oreo cookies that I would love to eat straight. Personal preference, this is how I like to eat them. Nobody come for me. But here's the part where you kind of release your stress a little bit. You just want to crush them up into little pieces, a little bit of baking powder to help give that cake a nice rise. And then here it is. You're basically just combining the milk and cream back into the cookies. It's a little bit like making cake pops, I feel. So I think most recipes actually call to use a microwavable cake mold. I don't have that, but I do have this dome-shaped chocolate mold, so that's what I'm going with. Just greasing it up a little bit before I'm filling it in with the Oreo batter. Beautiful color. And then we're actually gonna microwave it in 1-minute increments. And this is what it looks like around 1.5 to 2 minutes later. It is extremely hot though. I almost burnt my fingers there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But essentially once I let it cool a little bit more, it was pretty easy to just pop them out of the molds. And I actually kind of like them in this little dome-shaped situation. In fact, I liked it so much as like a bite-sized cake concept, I went ahead and did that chocolate ganache covering on each piece. So it almost looks like a little, you know, like chocolate truffle cake bite treat. Totally optional. I feel like most people do it anyways. I just think it's fun, and you know me, I like making things look a little pretty, but I really like how it came out with a little bit of Oreo sprinkle on top, and would you believe it actually kind of looks gourmet. These look so cute. I let these ones cool a little bit in the fridge, and unfortunately it did crack a little bit, but now they're less messy when you pick it up. Again, the chocolate ganache covering is optional. I think it's a fun little thing to do that doesn't take too much time. I had a feeling it was gonna be good, but it is actually quite good. Granted, I'm no longer getting cookies and cream flavor, it's mostly just chocolate. The inside of the cake, it is perfectly soft. I'm gonna try this one too. This one feels a little harder, maybe because I actually microwaved some of these for a little bit longer. When you get the timing right, it still has like a gentle bite to it, but it is moist and intense chocolate brownie bite. And truthfully, if I hadn't known that it was Oreo as I'm eating this, I don't know if I'd be able to tell. I really think this would be the perfect little gift. Could even be like a nice little holiday activity, you know? I like this. I would give this an 8 out of 10. Would recommend. I guess Oreo has redeemed itself after that rice cooker craziness. This next recipe is sort of like a play on mozzarella cheese sticks, where instead of breadcrumbs, we're using wrappers. So the original recipe actually calls to use wonton wrappers, but I had dumpling wrappers around at home and I thought it'd be fun to give that a try. So that's what you're seeing here. And the thing about these dumpling wrappers is that they are a bit smaller, so I had to kind of trim my string cheese to make them fit inside. And all I'm using to glue it together to seal it tight is just a little bit of water, because you do not want this cheese to sneak out of the wrapper. So that's all I'm doing here. I'm just wrapping the little bits of cheese up in their dumpling wrapper blanket, and once again just making sure that they are tucked in real nice. Just doing a little test here to make sure that the oil is ready to go. Isn't it nice how that dumpling wrapper just crisped up so fast? Nice bit of color on there too, which means we're ready to go. So here they are, all these little mozzarellas, if you will. And this process actually all happened really fast. All I wanted to do was to make sure that it crisped up on the outside, had a little bit of color, and you can see how the cheese is starting to ooze out a little bit. So that's when I immediately pulled them all out and it's ready to serve. I was quite excited about this one. Disclaimer, I did not have wonton wrapper at home, but I did have dumpling wrappers, and they kind of function very similarly. But just so you know, I did do that little test with the dumpling wrapper. It looks like a tortilla chip. Very crunchy. Look at that nice crust. Marinara sauce. Give me a cheese pool. There you go. That's what I wanted. Oh my. I love it. Needs a bit of salt, but my god, this was so easy. And the dumpling wrapper works beautifully. It crunches up so fast, sort of like a shallow fry, and you still get this beautiful crunch. And the cheese has just enough time to melt. The texture of the wrapper is for sure different from breadcrumbs. It does add a nice chew to it though that I kind of like. I'm into this one. This is a pretty high 8 out of 10 for me. If there was a way to season the wrapper a little bit more, that would be amazing. If you were on the internet in 2020, you probably recognize this coffee. The Dalgona coffee that went so viral, I feel like everybody was making this at home. I still remember producing a video about this during lockdown and just whipping the coffee like crazy with my hand. Now that things are a little bit more back to normal, I still like doing this recipe every now and then. And you can also see that I have chosen to go with a milk frother instead to make my life easier. I will say doing it this way will not make your whipped coffee as fluffy, but it still gets the job done. I like to fill my glass up with lots of ice, good amount of milk to balance the coffee out, and right on top it goes, like a nice drizzle of caramel. The iconic homemade cafe drink. This one is such a throwback. Can't believe it's been 4 years since this last one crazy viral, when we were all stuck in our homes and trying to find a way to pretend we were outside at a cafe. Dalgona Coffee. I made so many of these back then. It does look very much like a cafe-esque drink, doesn't it? I love this. You get this sort of creamy, luxurious mouthfeel just from all that whipping. There's no caramel in it, but something about that sugar and the coffee when whipped together, it creates those sort of notes. It just feels so much like you're drinking a fancy, expensive glass of latte. Can be quite addictive when you love coffee. 1 tablespoon of instant espresso is enough. Do not do 2. It will also be too bitter. No notes. 9 out of 10. I do not want to get wired, so I'm going to put this down. So this milk mochi situation is something that I feel like I see a lot on the internet, but I never got around to making it because I guess I've always been a little bit skeptical. Also because I'm worried about making a mess with how sticky it gets. But today is the day and I'm just dumping everything into a saucepan, trying to make sure most of the lumps are out before I am slowly heating this mixture up on the stovetop. And you can see how the mixture kind of slowly solidifies until it becomes this sort of ooey gooey goop. Or well, essentially it gets that mochi texture we love so much. And once it gets to this point, I'm just removing it from the heat because I'm too worried about burning it. But it is, as expected, extremely sticky. So I actually think it was helpful to grease the pan that I'm putting it in, as well as the spatula that I'm shaping it with. My hands as well, as I tried to kind of roll it into this sort of like oval ball shape. And that's it. This was a tricky one. I did not think it would be this tricky. Here they are, like a nice mochi shape. Trying to pick this one up and it's just... Here it is. It is truly like a little blob. It smells like glutinous rice flour. I feel like I see these snacks a lot in night markets in Taiwan. Usually though, they're covered in peanut powder or black sesame powder. It does have that chewy consistency, you know, that QQ consistency that we love, but it does sort of have a very one-dimensional flavor profile. And by that I mean it tastes exactly like how you would think it's gonna taste like. It tastes like glutinous rice flour with a bit of sugar. I think because I associate this flavor with tangyuans, the glutinous rice balls with a filling on the inside. I keep on feeling like I'm missing something. You don't really get the milk flavor in the beginning. I am getting that sort of like aftertaste now. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. Yes, you get the chewy, but I feel like it's a bit lacking in the flavor department. It looks cute, but sometimes being cute can't save the day. So 3 out of 10 for me. Sorry, milk mochi. This is another recipe that I think resurfaced on TikTok a couple years back. But I say resurfaced because the recipe on its own has actually been around for a long time. And it's actually pretty genius because, you know, baking can be intimidating for a lot of people. This version only requires 3 things, and I feel like it's very hard to mess it up. So you can see that I'm not really going in with that much finesse. If anything, I'm struggling a little bit with the amount of peanut butter. Now that I think about it, maybe I should have done crunchy peanut butter. I feel like that would have been fun. But here's what it looks like after everything's combined. It almost looks like miso paste, doesn't it? You don't need to rest it or anything. You don't even need to use an ice cream scoop if you don't have it. I'm just using it to help me portion it out a little bit better, but I'm really just going in with my hands and forming a ball shape again. And because there's so much oil from the peanut butter, you don't even have to worry about it sticking to your hands. But this is my favorite part, that it's included as part of the recipe itself, where you kind of just go in with a nice little crisscross pattern. It helps flatten the cookies and also just makes it look kind of nice. And let me tell you, when I was baking these, my kitchen smelled like roasted peanuts. Kind of into it, to be honest. Oof, these ones smell like, you know, the Nutter Butters, very peanut buttery. I have made these cookies before, actually. I think when I was doing 24 hours of viral TikTok foods, and I remember liking these a lot. Here we go again. Small moment of appreciation for this little crisscross pattern. I let these cool a little longer, and I feel like some of the sugar actually crystallized a little bit more. Little crunchy bits inside. Not sure if I love, but I can see people liking it because of how much peanut butter there was in here. The type of peanut butter you use is very important. I think the first time I made this, the peanut butter I used was like Skippy, which has a little more sugar in it already. I actually think something like Skippy would work better in this case. Something about the flavor and the sugar level, I feel like that would match this cookie the best. You do get the peanutty flavor. It just doesn't seem to come off as rounded. It's like a nice entry-level baking recipe. Super easy to put together. I'd probably put this at like a 5 or 6 out of 10. I think it could have some other components in there to balance it out a little bit. I am very intrigued by this one because of how it uses potato chips. You might have noticed it by now, but I do have this fascination of repurposing snacks. But this one is quite special because the creator of this recipe mentioned that they were inspired by another recipe for a Spanish omelet, which normally uses actual real potatoes. So I feel like this is supposed to emulate that, which is why I actually went with chips that have a firmer texture, because the chips are supposed to soak in the eggs for a little bit, and I was worried they would get too soggy. Depending on the flavor of the chips that you use too, that could substitute for a big part of the seasoning. We're also not cooking this too much, just enough for the eggs at the bottom and the sides to gently set. And then we're just finishing it off in the broiler for about like 1 to 2 minutes. So it shouldn't be too rubbery, ideally fluffy, to be confirmed. But for now, we have ourselves an omelet. I am very much looking forward to this one. Trying to get a piece out. Ooh! It really is just like, well, it looks more like a quiche than an omelet, but they did say this is inspired by a Spanish omelet recipe. Looking this up, it's usually made with eggs, potatoes, and onions, and it's often served at room temperature as a tapa. Maybe I should have gone like an onion flavored chip. Here's what it looks like. I did go for kettle cooked chips, so they're a little more firm. I am kind of glad I went with the salt and black pepper chips though, because you can see the little black pepper bits. The way to cheat the 3-ingredient system, I suppose. The chips still have a little bit of a crunch, but it actually tastes and feels like the crunch that comes with a crispy baked potato, which is kind of nice and unexpected. I think this recipe also makes sure that you really don't overcook the eggs. I feel like I could even undercook it a little bit more. It really does feel like a potato-y omelet. I do think it needs a little more seasoning though, because even though the chips themselves have seasoning, when you mix it with the eggs, it kind of gets lost a little bit there. Like it needs a little boost of flavor. That aside, I feel like this has a lot of potential. So I would give this like a 6. Great base to work off of though. So far, we have seen a lot of 3-ingredient recipes, but you've also noticed that not all 3-ingredient recipes have the same level of difficulty. And this one, in my opinion, might be the easiest one yet. And if you're somebody who doesn't like doing the dishes, oh boy, are you in for a treat, because everything here is only done in the mug itself. And all you need is a mug and a spoon. Just 4 heaping tablespoons of Nutella, 1 egg, and like a pinch of flour, really. You are supposed to fold the flour in, but just so I don't have to wash an additional spatula, I'm just gently kind of folding it in, trying to simulate those motions with a spoon until it's kind of looking like brownie batter, right? Honestly, it looks like hot chocolate in batter form. And then all you have to do is pop this in the microwave. The plate is just there for in case accidents happen, just for 2 minutes, and you can see how it's slowly rising already. Also, I learned my lesson, so I let it cool a little bit first this time. But my goodness, did this smell amazing. We're gonna amp this up even more with a nice smear of Nutella, and you have yourself a beautiful cake in a mug. This one smells very decadent. It's like a cross between hot cocoa and chocolate cake. It looks a little crazy, but you can see the consistency here. It's very soft. I gave it some time to cool already, but that's kind of what it looks like. Kind of similar to our Oreo brownie bites earlier, but even more indulgent. It's like sticking everywhere. But actually though, the texture is so much like a moist chocolate cake. When you bake it in the oven, it can be hard to achieve that consistency, but here it was just a little bit of flour with the egg, and it mostly is the Nutella itself carrying this through, and you get this like really delightful texture. Actually kind of wild. It's so fudge-like. This one is actually pretty amazing, especially because you can eat it straight out of the microwave oven. You don't have to make it in a different bowl. Dump it all in a mug and you get this fudgy moist chocolate cake. How wonderful is that? This one has to be at least a 9 out of 10. As somebody who craves chocolate cake all the time, this is a terrible discovery. This one is supposed to be a shortcut version of orange chicken, and I'm using chicken McNuggets here because I love them, and I just wanted to see if it would give me that same satisfaction of eating sweet and sour chicken or orange chicken. I did immediately have to reduce the portion of the orange marmalade because the one that I bought is quite sweet. And you can cook this over the stovetop, but the recipe calls to just microwave it. And to add barbecue sauce to taste. I do feel like it was a little bit sweet though, so I had to add some salt to balance it out, just to give this recipe a fighting chance, you know? And because there is a lot of sauce, I'm just scooping a little bit out to put off to the side before I'm adding in my nuggets to the remaining sauce. And immediately the sauce just clings onto the breading of the nuggets beautifully. I can see this working really well with fried chicken wings and drumlets too, but here I'm just trying to plate it up like sweet and sour chicken. A little bit of garnish on top. Ooh, I'm excited. I just want to say, I tried to make this look as much like a dish served at a Chinese restaurant as possible, and honestly, I mean, this would probably be spring onions, but I feel like this is something somebody would whip up at, like, you know, one of those like cooking show challenges. Selfishly, I really wanted this one to be successful because I actually love orange chicken. Tried to find that right balance with the seasoning here. Ooh, you see the little orange bits on there too? It is a little sweet, but I can feel the essence of it. Maybe the mixture still needs a bit of fine tuning, but I get the idea. I just want to try one where we dip it, sort of like sweet and sour sauce. Right now, as it currently is, the sauce might be a little too sweet for a full-on coating, but it's great for dipping. You do not have to use nuggets for this. I just used chicken nuggets for this because I love nuggets and I wanted to see if it would work. The orange sauce we know that we're familiar with has a lot more nuances to it than just throwing orange marmalade and barbecue sauce together. But if you have that craving and you just want something fast, then I think this is like a compromise. I would put this at like a 6 out of 10. I would recreate this sauce for the fun of it, but is it a strong enough contender for personal consumption? Debatable. I'm glad we tried it though. And that's it. All 8 of our 3-ingredient viral recipes rated, tested. I honestly feel like we had some pretty good ones today. Thank you again to Skims for literally supporting me for the past couple of hours. It's now almost like dinner time and it's only my feet that's hurting. As always, I want to know what your favorites from today were. Right now though, I'm planning for an air fryer special edition because it's been highly requested. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye.